Hey y'all, we are back with another episode of Black Women Healing Podcast, and we have a special guest. As we are moving into this new year, we're wanting to feature authors, and so we had a special person, Regina, who helped influence this idea, and we are kicking off the year with her book first. And so, as usual, before we jump in and get started, we want to have a little conversation. So, Danica, do you want to kick off our conversation?
Yeah, sure. So right now, because, quarantine and because of COVID and us trying to protect ourselves and others, it's a lot of quarantining. And so we're just asking, just discussing different creative ways we've been able to connect with friends, families, and loved ones during this time. So, Regina, what are some ways that you've been able to creatively connect with others?
Okay, well, the quarantine has definitely been an experience, so we all have to be creative. But we did a lot of different things. We did the drive-through experiences. We also did the food trucks. But one that really stood out for me was I gave sometimes some months or some of the weeks a theme. We even did that for New Year's. We actually put it's like a care package. And what we did was, even though we couldn't be together, we had schedules to make you intentional. It made you think about things, reflect. You had painting, you had things with activities. We had a little party. We had Bible reflection. And I even have the one that we did for New Year's. We had the little things and you pull them out, but there wasn't always like this. It's just different things. You had treats, mass night, let's do a spatial spa. So we did things that kept us feel like we wasn't being idle. And I don't like to be idle. So that's what we did to make us feel like we was connecting, even though we was distant from each other. Yeah.
That is really cool. Wow.
Yeah, I think that the drive-in, that's actually a cool one too. I miss going to the drive-in. So I'm most definitely gonna go ahead and steal that one from you, Myra. I know in other episodes, me and Myra have talked about it, but Myra, is there any other ways you're thinking of right now, of ways that you've connected during this time?
Now that she's reminding me of the drive-throughs, we did a drive-through graduation.
Okay.
Anything about that. But since we talked about this, Danica, it makes me want to ask, how are people, getting connected to themselves? Because I feel like for me, again, we've had a lot of conversations about me going for walks and runs, and I feel like that's been helpful for me. And also just having more times of silence has been helpful for me too. So it makes me wonder, what are other people doing? Because this is a difficult time to kind of stay sane. So I'm just wondering, what are you thinking about, Danica?
I want to say, it's pros and cons. I live alone, so I get a lot of alone time.
Yeah.
I guess, me being alone, and sometimes I feel like I have been journaling a lot more. I'm not a big journaler, but I have been reflecting a lot more. I also, if y'all haven't heard, Iyanla Vincent, I hope because we gotta get her name right every time. Iyanla Vincent. It's one of them. Iyanla, though, I got the first one name. Iyanla, I got you.
Talking about.
So
yeah,
she has this app. Actually, let me make sure. Iyanla, she does these. They're called monthly, it's something, but those are free. Okay. And I usually go to those every month, but she also has this app called called the Daily.
Have music to it?
What'd you say?
Does it have music to it?
Yeah, it has, so you can hear her voice, and it's kind of like this music in the background. And every Sunday, she releases kind of these intentions to focus on over the week.
Okay.
And you can purchase it if you want daily stuff, but I'm frugal. I'll take the words that I can get. And so I also have been utilizing her app to leave me with intentions for the week. So I do feel like I've been doing a lot of inner self work, which has been pretty cool. What about you? Could you spark this question?
The walks, like I said, I've been getting up a little bit earlier to do things because I feel like I have people can't really contact you if you're up at 5 a.m. People aren't really up at that time. So I feel like for me, finding pockets of, even though I live alone, a lot of people contact me. So it feels like I'm always in contact with people and always talking to people. So finding those moments of when are people not going to contact me. So I like getting up early, but I also like staying up late. So I've been playing around with that. Like if I'm staying up late, what am I doing for myself when I'm staying up late? What am I doing when I'm waking up early?
Yeah.
So those moments. But you mentioned this app, and it's making me think about Alex L., one of my favorite poets. If you just sign up for her email list, she sends out journal reflections every month, and they're always so intentional, and they always align so perfectly with things that are just happening in the world and in my life. So I do want to suggest that to you all. It's free, and she has great prompts. But Regina, what are you doing? I'm curious.
Well, actually, I'm doing journaling too. I love to journal everything. I'm like one of those people that reflect through every little aspect of my life. So I just wake up early, and I kind of similar with you when you said that you're up early and you like up really late. Wake up early, you're up late. We need some because I know what that feels like, because you want to be intentional through every hour, I think, because you want to make sure you're being able to reach those goals that you're trying to get to. But if you're doing that, you're not helping yourself. So I really reminder on that. But right now I've just been journaling. I'm kind of old school, so I do use the paper and the pen. That's me. And I look through it, and I have like this collection of them, especially over for the quarantine for 2020. I have like this many. So like, when I look back, I'll have that to see. But yeah.
Yeah. Danica's making me think about when we had that episode with your sister, and I had said to your sister, you know, journaling is something that you can leave behind. Like, it's not necessarily like a book that you publish, but your thoughts. And if you feel okay to leave that behind, it serves so much value. And your sister was like, oh, I'm definitely doing that. So it's making me think about, you have this stack of journals, but it's really cool if, you know, this is something that we're just experiencing, to leave that for future generations, somebody in your family, or if you have kids, whatever, where they could be like, oh, wow, this is interesting to hear about what was happening during that time. So that's really cool.
That's so true. It's so true. Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and jump into Regina's bio. So Regina is an educator, inspired Bible teacher, and writer. Her purpose is to encourage women to experience the joy of a fulfilled life. She knows this can only come from a close relationship with God. Because of her involvement in discipleship, she founded the Responsive Soul. This organization is primarily for women who are willing to become aware of their accountability to God. She currently resides in Memphis, Tennessee. She takes long walks, loves horseback riding, and enjoys traveling. And she can be found at reginamurden.com. That's ReginaMurden.com. So I want to go ahead and just dive in and talk about Rendered for More. So this is a book that she published, and y'all got to check it out. So I want to hear, what was the initial inspiration behind writing Rendered for More?
Okay, well, in all honesty, Rendered for More was actually never planned. This would make it kind of unique in its own way. It started, or initially was inspired just with a manuscript paper from a transitioning state of my life where I wasn't planning to write a book, but I was just, like I said, I love to journal. And even though I was journaling, it led to a manuscript. And so by that happening, the transition was more of something that was inwardly. So it wasn't anything I was thinking for publicly to share, but something that was more or less inwardly. I was transitioned because I see myself one that like to be a disciple, and also see myself discipled by following God as he tells me, you know, this is what you need to do, or, you know, you need to, you know, be calm, or you need to be more aggressive, and that sort. So Rendered for More, it wasn't planned, but even though it wasn't planned, it was birthed through that season that was dark. It was a very dark season for me. That season where I was being stretched. You know, you don't like to be stretched, but we all have to go through that. And when I went through that, I saw he was showing me in a way that was intimate, but he was showing me that I had to render things that I did no longer need. Like sometimes we don't know we need it. So he put us in a special environment. So he put me in an environment where I felt confined, but stretched to believe what he was doing at the same time, because it felt like I was blinded. But at the same time, I felt that there was something changing. So that was the stretching part of it. But when he was doing that, at that time, he was getting rid of things that I did not need, like pride. He was getting rid of things like doubt. They were getting rid of things that was like self-sufficiency. And I have this like issue where I love to plan. and self-control, I had to take my control off. That was, whoa, but but I had to wait there that for more. So yeah.
That's interesting that you talk about the removal of the self-control even before COVID, because now we're in a space where you really don't have space for that, right? And so to go on this journey of, it's already something I've worked on, I'm sure that easing into COVID was probably a much different experience for you than some others where like, they're so used to that, right? So it just made me think about that, because a lot of my conversations with people have been like, I just miss having the control. And that's all I miss. I just miss having control over my life. So I think that's a good point that you bring that up.
Absolutely. So, in reading your book, and I don't most definitely don't want to spoil like everything, but you utilize Esther, and so why did you choose Esther versus other women in the Bible to guide your book? And like, did any other women come in mind when you were like, writing this book?
All right, that's a good question, because honestly, there's so many phenomenal women that's in the Bible. So it's like, which one do you choose? They're all awesome. To me, they are. I'm pro woman on that stuff. But even though they all were good women, they wore their crown very well with elegance, with determination. Even though they had different like sceneries that God used them in order for them to use their purpose. But what really resonated with me was Esther, because Esther, it felt like she was like my sister with what I was going through at that time, because Esther, she had a crown to wear, right? But she did not know her crown. Like, we all have a crown, but sometimes we don't understand the weight of it, or we don't understand how to wear it right. And Esther, she was just an orphan, right? She didn't have any identity, and she didn't know where she actually belonged. So I kind of felt in a lot of ways I was an orphan, because not biologically, but I was an orphan spiritually, because even though I was raised in a Christian family, I didn't really know where I belonged. Where was that purpose? You find it, because I'm looking around, there's people like, I have it, I'm a person, like, I don't have it. I don't have it yet, and it was okay, because with Esther, you didn't ever see her fretting in the story when written for more, because actually that's why I wrote the memoir in a way that it can be used as a devotional, that you can go back to that story, that here you are, a woman or a young girl that is a modern Esther, can look back and relate to a first century Esther, right? That she did not have it all together. She did not quite know what the walk looked like, but a suddenly happened. And her suddenly happened mainly because she trusted, she followed through, she believed in God, and she didn't know exactly where it was going to lead to, but it led her to, look, she was like the queen that had to, maybe to save a nation. That was huge. And so for me, I did not know exactly what my purpose was leading me to, but it was suddenly, it led me to this, a writing ministry. So that's why I chose Esther. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for breaking that down. It most definitely makes sense, even more sense now, because in the book, the way you break it down, you most definitely speak about a lot of relatability that you have with Esther. But in talking about the book, I love how you kind of like talk about some popular culture trends of today. And so two mentions that you talk about this goat versus sheep, and then you talk about the holeosis. So going into detail with what you're thinking when you think of the goat versus sheep or holeosis, what are some of your thoughts?
Well, look, it's so interesting. It's like you always hear people saying, GOAT, greatest of all time. Okay, who doesn't want to be greatest of all time? But even though you want to be greatest of all time, but it's a certain way that you should position yourself or posture yourself to want to be a greatest of all time. And why I definitely put it in there intentionally was because it's the significance of a goat and a sheep. They're in the same family. And even though they're in the same family, the goat characteristic is they're stubborn, they have this pride. But then you got this other one, a sheep, that, it has just the same significance, but it's more humble, it's more gentle, it's may not, needs to have like, care, because the sheep does not have like the independence of itself, just like us. We do not have that independence that we think we need. And like I said, in that season, I felt like I needed to have let go of that self-sufficiency so that I can be able to rely on my Father. So I use those two because one was showing you can be stubborn, you can be so prideful. And like, if you think about your family, like if you think about Christ's family, you have within that same family one that can be a goat, they're so stubborn, or you can have one that can be so gentle and they can be overlooked. Or if you look at your nuclear family, there's the same, you can even go farther, you got like the brother or that sister that can be very, like, I'm the greatest all the time, and then right next to you, you have one that's just so humble and meek, but at the same time can't really find their way. So I use that because I want to show the difference of, you want to make sure you get to your destiny, but you want to get to it wanting to be able to reach it in a humble way, the right way, so that you can maintain it, because that's what life is. You want to make sure you can maintain where you're trying to go.
Absolutely. Thank you for breaking that down. It makes me think about like, and maybe in certain different times in our life, us going through both of them, right? Being the goat and then also being a sheep. Like, it kind of like, you kind of go back and forth, right?
Yeah, true. Very true. That can definitely happen in the same season. You can go there. But what's so good about it is you have the choice. We all get to make a decision, whoa, am I being a goat? Well, what I can do? You can humble yourself to be a sheep. So yeah, that's definitely true. And then I think I didn't even answer the other part about the holiosis. Holiosis, I think I just made that word up because I am so guilty of it and I see it everywhere I go. I think we're all just guilty of that. When we hold it down. We just like, we like to put this badge on, like we do an act, but then we put a badge on and say, in Jesus, I care for you, or something like that. And holiosis means that you let that false pretenses go and you let the walls go and you walk with transparency. Because I believe that in this society, especially during this quarantine, transparency, it is very vital. It is essential that we be able to be, especially women, that's transparent. Because I know sometimes in the culture of a woman, we feel like we have to have that guard, but you don't have to have that, And then sometimes if you have that insecurity, you put up this like holiosis, where you feel like, I have this as my covering, and you look for faults in others when you shouldn't even judge, because that's not the way we're developed as vessels as that. So that was holiosis, not being like the Pharisees in the Bible when they were very legalistic. They were always about rules, and they didn't pay attention to the ruler, which is God, who did not focus on the rules. And so we let go of that, let go of the rules, and just be open and transparent.
Thank you for breaking that down. So we wanted to ask, what are some tips you can give us for listening to and obeying our truths?
So what can I give you? Let's see. Well, actually, I'm going to give you 3 tips. And for obeying your truth, the first one I would say is always be willing to ask yourself, are you honoring God in whatever you're doing for the will of your life for that moment? Because sometimes we can self-compromise sooner than we need to. And it's like, is this honoring God? Because when we honor God, we honor ourselves, we honor our purpose, we honor where we want to be. And we honor our healing process too when we do that. So that's the first tip. The second one I would say, are you capable to be reflective? Because being reflective helps you to stay in tune with yourself. Because we have to admit, we all are humans, we will make mistakes, but sometimes when we have to do that reflective piece, we can look back at our mistakes and we can look at it from regrets, but we don't have to look at it from that perspective. You can look at it as a lesson, that you're learning, and then you can see yourself becoming a person that is resilient, one who will never give up. And then the third tip I would say is, I will leave with you, is actually, I'm going to read it to you. It's from Colossians 2:7, and I'm going to read the New Living Translation version. Sorry with that. It says, let your roots grow down into him, and let your lives be built on him. then your faith will grow strong in the truth you were taught, and you will overflow with thankfulness. And that shows exactly what the circle of life. I don't know if you guys like the movie Lion King. I feel even when it came out 3D, and it was like what he's saying is pretty much is we are put on here to what? To grow. After we grow, what do? Do we keep it to ourselves? No, we get to sow it to others. And then after that, how do we do that? By being faithful and giving it unto others. So that's what would be the 3 tips I would give to you. Yeah.
Can you repeat that Bible verse one more time? I mean, the scripture.
Sure. It's Colossians 2:7.
Colossians 2:7. Okay. And Danica, did you want to add anything or ask any questions before I go on?
No, I think that like listening to and obeying our truths, it's another one of those things you talk about of like this letting go of control piece too. Because I think, and I believe you talk about this in your book too, about how we'll make ourselves believe anything's our truth if we want it to happen, right? If we feel good in that moment, you can convince yourself of like, oh no, this is it. But are you really, like, you're listening, following these types of tips to really filter through, is this really you listening and obeying God? Right? And so I like the way that you break it down.
Most definitely, yes.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah.
So we want to transition, Ags. What would you say are some main takeaways that you have for our audience and for the readers too?
Okay. For takeaways, I would say, hopefully you would take away that you can prevail. We all can. That's just how we're designed, actually. And we all have our own crowns. Remember that, ladies, who are in life. And so my assignment is for you, I would tell you to, is to focus, okay? Focus on owning your crown, okay? Not anyone else's, but yours. And not just owning it, but that you're owning it, that it is in a fashion that there's a difference, okay? That is why we wear the crown. We don't wear it so that we can be boastful. We don't wear our crown so that it can be sewn. Our crown is to be worn in a way so that we can serve with our crown in a position of humility. So what I would say is I encourage you to own your crown this year in 2021, and so that you can flourish. And think about who you might consider serving. Maybe there's a dream that you probably let go for a while. Pick it back up and blow on it and dust it off and see how you can add that addition jewel to that crown. Or maybe it's someone in the community that you can serve, but we all have a crown that is used for others. It's not used for ourselves. So yeah.
Yes, I love that.
Absolutely. So in talking about your book, just to like kind of keep people in on what to expect, at the back of the book, Regina does a really good job of giving us reflections to focus on as we're reading each chapter, which is super cool, because I know sometimes we read books and all the information just kind of, is just there. So to be able to break it down each chapter is really cool. And then it's also like a question and answer piece in the back that kind of talks about different traits that you have. So yeah, the book is really awesome. And if you're looking for like a jump start of kind of what Regina's talking about, which is focusing on your own crown, this is the perfect jump start right now. So y'all got to check the book out.
Most definitely, yes.
Regina, do you want to add anything before we close out for our episode?
Well, I think pretty much that would be probably, I just hope that it will just be a place that it will just meet you somewhere, that will be a stepping stone, like a community. That's what I'm really hoping for. And then I want Esther, the book, Render for More, to be like Esther's. We're all being Esther's community. So I don't know, we'll see. But like I said, I pretty much just want to just be a community. That's all. But yeah.
Thank you for that, and we'll be sure to share the links all throughout this month so that people are aware of it and people are purchase it. And we would just want to thank you for your time and for you reaching out to us. We really enjoyed reading the book and having conversations amongst ourselves. So thank you again for that.
Thank you, ladies, for having me.
Of course.
Yes.
We hope you all enjoyed this week's episode. As we have shared, moving forward, we will be reading one book a month and having a conversation about it. And so, again, our book that we will be reading for the month of February will be Mama Didn't Raise This Woman, and it's by Najari Maldonado. Oh my gosh. NJERIMLADONADO. My tongue is fumbling. Sorry, y'all. But yeah, Mama Didn't Raise This Woman. Like I said, if you Google it, it pops up. So it's there. Danica, what you got to share with us?
Yeah, I just want to continue keying you out on our event this month. And so January 23rd, it's a Saturday from 12:40 p.m. to 2 p.m. We will be having a social distancing step aerobics event that's going to be led by Chris of KC Fitness. We'll have water and Chris will provide the step tool for us. And it's going to be in Los Angeles, California. Once you purchase the ticket, you will get the actual address. But yeah, we're hoping to kickstart this year off with a nice little workout event that promotes community. So yeah, go ahead and get those tickets.
Yes, most definitely. And we want to thank y'all for tapping in with us again in 2021. And we ask that you like, comment, and subscribe on any and all platforms. You can find us anywhere. And thank y'all again and have a good rest of your week.